Hearing of the House Armed Services Subcommittee on Strategic Forces to order. Welcome everybody here today. Today we're holding an oversight hearing on the missile defeat posture and strategy of the United States, the FY17 President's budget request. And unfortunately, votes are going to be called on the House floor between 3 and 3:30. So in order to make sure we can get to the meat of the hearing, which is the Q&A period, the ranking member and I have agreed that we're going to dispense with our opening statements and the witnesses' opening statements, so they'll be submitted for the record in their entirety, and we'll go straight to questions. We're very fortunate today to have a very distinguished panel. The witnesses we have are the Honorable Brian McCune, Principal Deputy Undersecretary for Defense Policy, Department of Defense, Admiral Bill Gortney, Commander, North American Aerospace Defense Command, U.S. Northern Command, Vice Admiral James Syring, Director, Missile Defense Agency, Mr. Barry Pike, Principal Executive Officer, Missiles and Space, U.S. Army, and Rear Admiral Edward Cashman, Director, Joint Integrated Air and Missile Defense Organization. And Lieutenant General Mann is here somewhere, or maybe not. I think that's for the closed session. That's right. We'll have Lieutenant General Mann here for the closed session. All right, and with that, like I said, we'll dispense with the opening statements, and I'll go directly to recognizing myself for the first series of questions. This will be for Admiral Syring and Admiral Gortney. Is the Iran ballistic missile threat to the region, including Israel or the United States, slowing in any respect since last year? Admiral Gortney, would you like to go first?
Sir, we've seen, as a result of JCPOA, the nuclear issue temporarily, potentially permanently taken off the table, but we see them to continue to develop the propellant, the rocket motor, and we assume they're continuing to develop a reentry vehicle. So we see, of the three pieces that they need, a nuclear weapon miniaturized to put on it, a delivery-capable booster, and a reentry vehicle. We don't see the latter two being slowed.
Admiral Syring, did you want to offer anything in addition to that?
I agree. I do not see it slowing in any way.
Great. All right, Admiral Syring, we often talk about the combatant commanders in military services for the unfunded requirements list. Do you have an unfunded requirements list?
So there are gaps in the BMDS that are...
Please pull the microphone closer.
Sure. There are gaps in the BMDS currently that are not funded, and they include advanced technology, a space layer, and additional sensor capability as well.
What funding do you require to meet the combatant command requirement for THAAD and SM-3s?
I'm building 7 THAAD batteries. The stated requirement from the Army is 9. So I have a 2-battery gap today to the stated requirement. I'm building at a rate to fill out the 7 batteries by the end of the fit-up.
What about the Aegis system?
Aegis system, 33 BMD ships today, going to over 40 by the end of 2020, 2021. SM-3s, 1As and 1Bs, about 170, on path to 415 through the fit-up. I do not have an end inventory objective yet for Aegis.
Great. Are you funded to develop and deploy defense against boost glide missiles like those being developed by Russia and China? How much would such development cost?
I am not funded.
How much would it cost to do that?
I've asked for $23 million to begin a low-power laser demonstrator this year to demonstrate the feasibility by 2021.
And let's see. Mr. Pike, I'd like to call your attention to the screens. You'll see red, yellow, and green highlighted areas which represent different decades of key systems to the current Patriot radar employed by the U.S. Forces. I note these are the systems employed by the U.S. and not our partner nations in the Patriot program. If the green represents the radar hardware that is with 1990s vintage, which are expected to be obsolete in 2010, and it's now 2016, of course, would I be correct to say that even under your radar digital processor program, some of the newest equipment in the radar, the green shaded area, will be older than any air defender who uses it?
Sir, I haven't done the math on that, but it is aging technology, sir.
So if I'm correct, and we are to assume that 2028 initial funding of a new Patriot radar will occur, we will have a radar system with components in some cases that are 58 years old?
Sir, we're continuing to modify and request funds to modify the existing Patriot radar until we are able to fill the lower tier air and missile defense sensor. The schedule is not really established yet as 2028. The Army is meeting this afternoon as a part of the Army Requirements Oversight Council to establish the actual operational requirement. And once that operational requirement is established, we'll be able to assess the maturity of the technology against the requirement. And so that schedule that you've seen is not set in stone.
But you've seen what I've described. It's completely unacceptable. Aren't there systems that we have available that have been developed already that can meet the needs that this system should be meeting that are available for us to access from the private marketplace?
Sir, the Army conducted an analysis of alternatives. It was a very broad analysis across all the department, assessed all the available radars within the Department of Defense, modifications to those existing radars, and then new radars altogether. That analysis of alternatives is complete through the Army. However, it's within OSD for a sufficiency evaluation. And again, once that analysis of alternatives is complete and delivered to the Congress as a part of the law, then we will be able to go forward with an acquisition strategy and a formal schedule and a material solution, none of which we have currently today.
Well, I just want to be clear, speaking only for myself, I'm not turning loose of this one. It's going to have to be remedied. Admiral Syring, if MDA was developing and procuring these radars with the acquisitions authorities you have, how much time would it take for you to take care of this problem?
Mr. Chairman, I haven't looked at their specific technology, their specific schedule, but I can talk to what we did with LRDR, which was the current radar that's under contract today, where we had a very defined requirement from the Joint Staff and had that under our umbrella, had the technology proven actually through the Navy's AMDR competition, so we didn't have to go through any of the milestone A to B activity. It's going to take us 6.5 years from start to finish.
Okay. With that, I'll yield to the ranking member for any questions he may have.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Admiral Syring, the level of funding for MDA is lower than in previous years. Can you explain this reduction for FY17?
Sir, it's lower and it's part of the overall DoD top line reduction as well. My share of that has lowered, not an equal percentage, but a similar percentage.
Mm-hmm. Admiral, do you support successfully flight testing the redesigned kill vehicle before making a final production decision?
Completely.
Again, Admiral Syring, is the schedule-driven requirement of deploying 44 ground-based interceptors driving undue risk in concurrency for acquiring and upgrading the interceptors?
No, sir. We will flight test the last configuration that will complete the 44x17 and then a very complex ICBM intercept test later this year.
Admiral Gortney, do you remain confident in the National Missile Defense System's capability? The Government Accountability Office stated in its February 2016 report that, quote, several key aspects of missile defense have not been demonstrated through flight testing, end of quote. Do you agree?
Sir, I'm confident of the systems that I'm responsible for, the ballistic missile defense for the homeland, and that.
Is your mic on?
And that the ballistic missile defense for the homeland that I work with MDA, and also the National Capital Region Integrated Air and Missile Defense System. Pretty high confidence in its ability to engage the threats that it's designed to go against.
Admiral Gortney and Admiral Syring, how many successful flight intercept tests are needed to demonstrate that interceptors work as intended and are reliable?
We, sir, going forward, we've scheduled and it's funded in the program to test before we field. For example, the version that will go in next year will be flight tested later this year. For the redesigned kill vehicle, we have a non-intercept flight test and then an intercept flight test, followed by a second intercept flight test in 2020 before those that configuration will be fielded.
So two successful flight tests make it reliable?
It will be one non-intercept test, which we'll learn a lot, and then two intercept tests. And based on the engineering that we get from the flight tests, along with the ground testing that we'll do, it'll be a complete body of evidence that will give us confidence in a decision to go to full production.
Admiral Syring, what's the appropriate level of investment for boost phase missile defense?
I don't know, is the answer, sir. And I don't know, because I need to get to a technology feasibility demonstration with some confidence in the next 4 to 5 years to go prove that it's, one, technically feasible, and two, the cost estimates that I'm getting from industry for a long-term program are affordable.
Mr. Pike, it is kind of shocking that the plan for Patriot modernization is expected to take 12 years, and that's assuming, I guess, you get approval this afternoon from your committee. I join in the chairman's assessment. We need to do what we can to make that much faster. All witnesses, should we start building an East Coast missile defense site?
Mr. Cooper, we're aware of the requirement in the NDAA to look at this and have something for a radar by 2020, and we have done the work on an environmental impact statement for a possible East Coast site pursuant to a prior NDAA. It's not where we would spend our next dollar in this budget, but it's something we will be postured to do after the EIS if a decision is made to do that.
Any other opinions, or did he speak real?
I'll speak before the commander. Not at this time, not this year, is the way I would respond.
Admiral Syring, a final question. Would upgrading the Hawaii-based Aegis Shore testing facility to a fully operational site improve U.S. missile defense in the region?
Yes, sir, potentially. Any sensor improvement for Hawaii, and frankly, in the kill chain for the BMDS, east and west, will improve our sensor and discrimination capability.
But you're talking sensors, not missiles.
Sensors first, sir.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Franks.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank all of you. Thank you, those that are wearing uniform, for your commitment to protecting America and human freedom. I never want to miss that moment to tell you how much we appreciate you. Admiral Syring, I, for one, am very grateful that a man of your acumen is in the position that he's in. In 2011, the Institute for Defense Analysis conducted a study, and in it concluded a space-based interceptor layer would help defend against the more challenging missile threats, including direct ascent anti-satellite missiles and anti-ship missiles. Now, I know that it's imperative that at the right times we time the development of these things. It's always good to be looking at them and being potentially aware of the challenges that we may face. But can you explain to this committee why this capability might someday be important and it might be helpful to defend not only our satellites, but potentially against anti-ship missiles?
Mr. Franks, we have not in the recent years studied that in great detail. We've done some costing analysis of what a program may take and have some idea of the technical challenges to the said interceptor layer. Obviously, fielded interceptors in space worldwide from 20, 30 years ago, work had been done to show that could help. But, sir, we haven't looked at it in the department other than costing it against a range of alternatives, and frankly, the cost has been overwhelming on what it would take and the technical challenges.
Yeah. Well, I guess that might be part of why some of us would kind of like to begin to reorient at least our awareness in that direction. As detailed in a 2014 Defense One article, in both 2007 and 2014, China, as I know you well know, tested rockets to launch kinetic kill vehicles against satellites in low and high orbits, respectively. And both of these tests appear to indicate that they have the capability to attack our space assets. And in defending U.S. space assets against those direct ascent anti-satellite weapons, is that something that defending these assets is ultimately included in the MDA mission?
Sir, if we can defer the answer to classified session, I think we'd have a very constructive discussion on that point.
Would it be appropriate to ask if any other agency has any concurrent mission in the research and development against the means to defend against these types of weapons?
Sir, if I can defer that to classified session as well.
So let me rephrase this here a little bit, because I think you're absolutely right. But it is appropriate in this setting to suggest that a ballistic missile defense layer in space would provide not just the U.S. the ultimate high ground, it could provide a means to defending our space systems from these ballistic ASATs. Is that correct?
Sir, if it was technologically feasible and affordable, which I think both, in my mind at this point, are no, the answer would be yes to your question. I have serious concerns about the technical feasibility of interceptors in space, and I have serious concerns about the long-term affordability of a program like that.
Sir, that does not mean the department's not looking at another alternative to go after that problem set. There may be another mechanism, another way to do that, and I know the department's working on that.
Would you suggest that that there's some efficacy in maintaining an eye on that possibility?
A little bit out of my lane here, but of course, we're going to look at what is the requirement and then what is the way, the mechanism that gives us the best value, that's the most effective in order to solve that particular problem set. And sometimes one overarching system may be technically very hard and very expensive. But we can talk to the other mechanisms we're using when we go classified, sir.
Okay, and at this time, well, yeah, perhaps be running into the same challenge. So, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to yield back here and thank you all.
Okay, Representative Garamendi.
Thank you, and first apologize for not being here for the opening statement. So I may be covering some turf already that handled. The missile defense can be done in a couple of different ways. The one I want to really focus on is directed energy. We've talked about that, both classified and in the open hearing. In this open hearing, can you bring me up to date on where we are with the directed energy issue?
Yes, sir. Working on two primary technologies within MDA, the DPALS technology that's being risk mitigated out at Livermore, and fiber combined laser technology at MIT. And frankly, industry has been brought in over the last year to 18 months in a big way in terms of what they could potentially do with laser technology. We've asked this year for funding support for a low-power laser demonstrator to start this year to test in the 2020-2021 timeframe to go prove directed energy in a boost phase mode.
How much money have you asked for?
$23 million in fiscal year 17 budget.
Did you miss some zeros?
No, sir.
And what will the $23 million do?
The 5-year program is $278 million. $23 million is the initial increment of funding required to get concepts and contractors awarded.
And that is requested for this year's budget?
That's correct, sir.
I recalled something, didn't we do that last year also?
Last year as well, sir.
Did you get it?
No, sir.
It was in...
It was not appropriated. It was supported by this committee on the authorizers, both House and Senate, but was not appropriated.
Did the House appropriate it?
I'll have to take that for the record in terms of what their mark was before conference, but in the end, it was
well, I guess I'm looking for names.
Yes, sir.
Who killed it?
So, part of this is new. It was new last year, and I think there's been an education required on our part to go explain to people exactly what this demonstrator will do, and that it is not a new airborne laser 747 project, which actually had benefit, but this is a very much smaller scale demonstration to inform a future program, and that's all. There's nothing more, nothing less. And I believe industry is capable of competing and fielding a technology demonstrator.
We have a classified section. I'll wait to that point. Thank you.
Gentleman yields back. Chair, and I recognize the gentleman from Colorado, Mr. Lambert, for 5 minutes.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Admiral Syring, I'd like to ask you about foreign military sales of an advanced THAAD system to United Arab Emirates and then get the department's perspective on that afterwards. But is that something, if they're willing to front some of the cost of that we can afford? And are there people on record, and including yourself perhaps, that would be in favor of this project?
Sure. Right now in the budget, we're at the beginning concept feasibility level in terms of funding. I don't have a complete program even in my budget yet for THAAD-ER, or a follow-on THAAD. There's industry concepts on it, and frankly, some good thinking on that, and that there would be policy involvement with this question as well in terms of either a cooperative development on it or a full FMS case on a development program. But I don't have a stated requirement yet from the UAE for this capability, but certainly if we got it, we would consider that along with policy.
Yeah, Mr. McCann.
Mr. Lamborn, as a matter of general policy, our regional missile defense approach is to seek cooperative partners. So in theory, we certainly would want to encourage that kind of cooperation. As Admiral Syring said, we don't have a program to go market with the Emiratis, and nor have we gotten a request from them for this. So if we got to that stage, we'd obviously need to look at some technology releasability issues and the funding issues on each side. But in theory, it's something we would certainly be open to.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you both for saying that. And Admiral Syring, let me shift gears and ask about concurrency. Both the MDA and Special Forces have some unique capabilities in terms of rapid acquisition processes, and I believe concurrency is part of that. And can you talk about how that has been helpful to the MDA and what your perspective is?
Yes, sir. There's been some great examples recently that the agency has delivered in terms of meeting both policy and State Department requirements and combatant commander requirements. The example that comes to mind is Romania, and how quickly we were able to design, build, produce, test, and field a system from an announcement that was back in 2009. And to do that in a foreign country with the cooperation of the Romanian government, and all the work that went in, not just with MDA, but whole of department approach on this, including the Army Corps of Engineers, including many parts of OSD policy. It was remarkable in terms of us being able to do that quickly with contracts, requirements, contracts, award, and production and fielding. And I believe our authorities enabled that.
Well, I, for one, will go on record and say that I think this is something we need to examine to make broader than just MDA and Special Forces as we talk about acquisition reform, which the chairman of the full committee is very, to his credit, is very much wanting to push. So I think that this is something we need to look at and expand it within the Department of Defense.
So if I can just, you had also asked about concurrency. I think that's an important point. I think that's the risk of what I talked about, to make sure that we are managing concurrency as we go fast properly and not taking excessive risk with either technology or funding.
All right, very good. Does anyone else want to comment on that concept? Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Thank the gentleman. Chair recognizes Mr. Larson for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Admiral Syring. Very popular this afternoon, but I'll warn Secretary McKean I have a question for you. So, the first question, though, for Admiral is back to Mr. Cooper's question on the RKV, and I understand how you answered it, but I want you to take a little bit different approach on this, and I want to ask you how you're reducing acquisition risk itself for the RKV.
Yes, sir. Great question. The first part of acquisition risk starts with design and system engineering. And if we rush the cycle we're in now without proper maturity and without meeting the proper technology or design gates in terms of deliverables at certain points in the design, you will fail in the end. So this foundation that we're building with rigor and depth on the system engineering that are going into the design of the RKV is, in my view, the most important part. And what my direction has been to the team that's working this, which is a fantastic team, cross-industry team working this, is that we will not proceed past major design review points if the deliverables have not been met, have not been delivered, and do not meet our entrance and exit criteria. And sir, I can get this to you. There's a very lengthy entrance and exit criteria list for all of our design reviews and all of the gates that this design has to pass through. And the design maturity, in the end, sir, will drive when this thing is ready for test. I am planning for an end of 2018 test, but if the design maturity is not such, I will not test in 2018. And to me, that's where we need to hold the line here, is early on, and rushing programs through the design phase is they're absolutely doomed to fail.
Okay. Also, can you? We had a conversation earlier, and just help me understand this issue on THAAD in South Korea, and from a technical operational perspective.
Yes, sir. I'll leave the policy and the State Department discussion to the Secretary. I'll speak to it from a material standpoint. There's no doubt that the system can provide fantastic coverage capability for not only our ally there, but our U.S. deployed forces. And I'm confident in the design of that system and its intercept record, and if the decision were to be made, I stand by that it's the right material solution.
Yeah, great. Oh, and then the follow-up is on the policy, especially now in light of the National Assembly election yesterday, where the president's party lost a majority, and what the implications are. And so where are we from a policy perspective with the South Koreans?
As you know, Congressman, I think even we discussed it the last time I was here, we've made a decision to begin the formal consultations with our Korean partners. And I know there's been some meetings out in Korea looking at the siting and the funding issues. I'm not an expert on Korean politics. I don't think this changes things for President Park and her approach to this. So I think we're optimistic we'll get to a decision. I just don't have a timeline for you.
Yeah, okay, all right. GAO, sorry, is GAO here? No, okay, so we just have a report from GAO on this, okay. Have it right here. That's fine. Who can answer the question for me, the difference between what used to be called spiral development and now seems to be called concurrency? Are those the same things?
Let me take that, and then maybe Mr. Pike can add. When I think about, I'll give you my view. When I think about spiral development, I think about fielding a capability and then improving the capability over time. Concurrency is the initial problem in developing that initial capability in terms of assuming too much technical or cost risk as you develop an end item. And to me, they're two different things.
Mr. Pike?
Sir, I absolutely concur.
You concur with concurrency? All right. Well, I just, with a few seconds, I just don't believe we had a very good experience with spiral development. Others may disagree with me on that. It sort of became a moniker for getting things in the ground before they were ready. That's my definition of it. And so I guess I differ with a few folks here on that concurrency is something that's different than that.
Sir, if I can just comment on that, that we have testified, I've testified in this committee that the direction was given to field this system quickly, and that very foundation that I talked about in terms of maybe doing another design turn or two before it was fielded, everybody says would have benefited that program. And everything that we're doing now is to work to improve what's been fielded, and I believe we're on the right path.
All right, thank you.
Thank the gentleman. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Alabama, Mr. Brooks, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Admiral Gortney and Admiral Syring, am I correct that under the current plan for the ground-based mid-course defense system, there are no operational spare ground-based interceptors, and that there will not be for at least 5 or 6 years?
Sir, that's a correct statement. We are using everything that's been put under contract in terms of material buys to make our 44 by 17 and to have enough interceptors to do the testing that we need to do over the next 3 or 4 years. Again, the new design, Mr. Brooks, is paramount to buying additional interceptors. I do not want to buy more of the same of the old design.
In your judgment, when exactly will there be operational spares based on whatever is best designed?
Sir, as part of this budget, our first priority is to get the redesigned kill vehicle tested and get the older interceptors, the CE-1 interceptors, recapped with that new design. And then as we work through that upgrade and fielding path, there will be spares that are generated in procurement to have some margin against the current inventory.
Do you have a judgment as to what calendar year we're talking about before we start building up the inventory and have operational spares?
It will be in the 2025 timeframe, most likely, with our priority being fixing what's in the field first.
Is there anything that we in Congress should be doing to expedite the availability of operational spares over the next 9 years?
Sir, I would ask you to wait until we prove the new kill vehicle design and the new booster design and test it, and then we can talk about buying beyond what's in the budget today.
Admiral Gortney, do you have anything to add to what Admiral Syring has just stated?
No, sir. Again, the priorities that Admiral Syring has put in place, I fully support. We need to make that which we have as good as we can possibly make it while we then go to the next stage, and those are the proper investments.
All right, back to Admiral Syring. Yesterday, you mentioned in the Senate Subcommittee on Strategic Forces that MDA made the decision to pivot back to the GMD program and to increase the capacity and capability of the ground-based mid-course defense system. With a decrease of $75 million for fiscal year 17, what aspect of the ground-based mid-course defense system will assume the most risk?
Sir, if I can, we pivoted back to 44 by 17. The Secretary of Defense made that decision, and we're implementing it as MDA. That was a 2013 announcement by Secretary Hagel in March. The 70, I think it was 79 million in terms of less funding than what we requested in 17 for GMD. There are no components of that that are going to accept any appreciable risk because of that reduction. We requested a large amount of funding in 16 to get many of the efforts that had not been started in GMD started, and you've been very supportive of that request. And then over time, some of those estimates have been refined. In addition, the cut that we took in the end game based on the budget agreement in late 15 had some effect on the GMD program carrying part of that cut.
North Korea has been testing ballistic missiles at an unprecedented rate, and with an projected $800 million reduction to future years' defense program, what capabilities are we delaying into the future with respect to the ground systems and fire control on the one hand and the program operations on the other?
We are not delaying anything that we planned for or programmed in 16 based on that reduction. What we are delaying is, or taking risk with, specifically was increasing the SM-3 procurement. Nothing associated with the GMD system in terms of the planned modernization of the ground system, operations and support, safety, any of those aspects that are mission critical have not been affected by that. Sir, I was planning in FY16 for $7.8 billion in 17. And based on the budget agreement that came down in the end, at the end of 2015, my number in the President's budget was reduced to $7.5 billion as my share of the department cut. So it's really not 8.3 to 7.5. My President's budget request in 16 was actually 8.1. What was enacted was 8.3. So it was, my request was 8.1, 7.8. It was enacted at 8.3. I would have been 7.8 without the budget agreement. Budget agreement kicked me down $300 million, kicked us down $300 million.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Admiral Syring and Admiral Gortney.
Thank the gentleman. Admiral Syring, what are the risks of legislating or setting in stone a requirement to conduct a set a number of tests before the RKV final production decision?
We have obviously in this budget, we have a proposal and in our acquisition strategy that was signed by Mr. Kendall, that there will be one non-intercept and one intercept test conducted to inform a production decision by him, not me. There'll be another intercept in 20 that will happen before really anything is fielded. I would ask that you let us go through where we are in the early stages of the design and some of the testing of the components, all of it very methodical and very laid out in terms of the ground testing that will accompany our confidence before a flight test, before we legislate that it needs to be 3 or 4 or 5 flight tests. I think what will happen, sir, is that certainly at a minimum of 2, the 3rd flight test will give the warfighter the final confidence that the configuration is ready to be fielded. And I would say the 3rd flight test, all that necessary for an acquisition decision, will be an important point for us before we go start pulling CE-1 interceptors out of the ground with new RKVs.
Thank you. Chair, I recognize the gentleman from Hawaii, Mr. Takai, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Admiral Syring, it's great to see you. I have questions for you, Admiral. The first is, alarmingly, this year, North Korea conducted its 4th nuclear test and also launched a satellite into orbit using long-range ballistic missile technology. From your perspective, is there a gap when it comes to missile defense for Hawaii right now due to this threat?
If I can ask the commander to speak to that, sir.
Okay.
No, sir, I do not think there's a gap to that particular threat. We're prepared to engage and protect Hawaii, Alaska, and all of the rest of the states with the existing system and have high confidence in its success.
Okay. Thank you. Advanced Missile Defense Radar, or AMDR, prototype is being tested at PMRF in 2016. The AMDR radar would provide significant capability to detect and track advanced long-range ballistic missile threats. The prototype will be moved from PMRF for combat systems integration in 2017 unless a replacement radar is funded. I've submitted an amendment for advanced funding for planning and design to get a discriminating radar to Hawaii faster. Are you, Admiral Syring, supportive of this effort?
Sir, as you know, Admiral Harris has been open about the need for additional sensor capability in Hawaii. And we are obviously very well aware of that requirement and are looking at what the sensor options could be. But right now, it's a test site, and it's been a very effective test site. I think it's fair to say that we in the department will look at options to include sensoring to see if there is a way to answer the combatant commander's requirement in this area.
Okay, thank you. And my final question has to do with transitioning of this test site from a testing facility to an operational one. So in order to operationalize the PMRF and specifically the Aegis Ashore facility at PMRF in Kauai, a capability already in place, it must first be certified against the very ICBMs, excuse me, and the long-range missile technology that North Korea is developing and testing. What are the plans to do this?
Right now, there's no plans to do it, sort of simply. And I would just characterize it a little differently, if I can, sir, in terms of the sensor sort of options, and that part of the discussion with Admiral Harris is what additional sensor capability can we provide the existing ground-based mid-course defense system in terms of more capability against a more complex threat for Hawaii specifically. And that is the discussion that I think needs to happen. And right now, there are no plans moving forward outside the department to do that. Not that we haven't heard and don't understand the combatant commander's desire. It's a matter of what material solutions are available and when, and how much do they cost, frankly. And then what are the operational impacts? What are the secondary effects? Operationalizing an Aegis Ashore site is no easy step. There would be many parts of that in that equation. And sir, I don't know if you want to add.
We cover Hawaii today with the sensors that we have. But one of our key investment strategies in the way ahead is sensors improvement, because if we get sensor improvement, not just for Hawaii, but for the entire system, for the East Coast as well, then we drive our effectiveness up, which drives our reliability way up, which drives our costs down when we get that sensor discrimination that we need to continue to outpace the threat. So where the threat is today, with the investments that we have, we're confident we can continue to protect all of the states. And should that change, then we will adjust fires on that investment strategy.
Right. So for us in Hawaii, as well as discussions occurring in the media, and I think Admiral Harris has been part of those discussions, there is some indication of support and interest in operationalizing the facility on Kauai, number one, and number two, to use the Aegis Ashore platform as the way forward. I guess my question is, let me just say this. I think we can't wait until North Korea launches something that has precision, that can detect and hit something similar to Hawaii. We've got to be a little bit more proactive.
So let me just add to finish, if I can, Mr. Chairman, that there is an ongoing sensor analysis of alternatives that is extensive, looking at all sensor gaps around the world for not just us, but for other agencies and services. And certainly the Hawaii sensor capability is part of it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman yields back. Chair, and I recognize the gentleman from Ohio, Chairman Turner, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Admiral, when you were asked about whether or not we need an East Coast missile defense site, your answer was not at this time, meaning we don't need it now, which is a good thing we don't need it now, because we can't possibly have one, because there's a long lead time within which we need to construct one. And I'd like to work with you to clarify your answer, because I think there are those with your answer of we don't need it at this time or we don't need it now, who might use that as an answer to indicate that the preparation that this committee has undertaken for an East Coast missile defense site is needless or unnecessary. You don't mean that, right? You don't mean that the work that Congress has done to prepare for an East Coast missile defense site is needless or unnecessary.
Absolutely not.
Secondly, as you've articulated, I think very, very well, the rising threats from North Korea and Iran are increasing threats that we're seeing that are happening at just almost a frightening pace. Do you foresee a time at which we might need the capability to respond to these threats of an East Coast missile defense site? I was asking you, Admiral, because, again, they were asking in a manner, I think, to utilize your statement to indicate that it's not necessary.
Let me take that. We have a very systematic investment plan, which we've talked about in terms of how we're improving the current fielded interceptors, and that is extensive and has required funding and budget that the committee has supported. And you're
looking out for the future. You're looking out to see, and you do see a time where that additional capability would be necessary.
I see a time when additional capacity will need to be talked about.
Thank you.
Depending on where Iran goes with their threat development.
Thank you, Admiral. Mr. McKeon, this committee is charged with the responsibility of looking at our architecture to be able to see what our adversaries are doing and also respond to what our adversaries see we're doing. One of the areas that we're concerned with, obviously, is the Open Skies Treaty and Russia. General Stewart, head of the DIA, testified that Russia gets, quote, incredible foundational intelligence on critical infrastructure, bases, ports, all of our facilities. So my perspective, again, being his, it gives them a significant advantage, and I would love to deny the Russians having that capability. Mr. McKeon, is Russia permitting overflights of Kaliningrad, which, of course, are permitted under the treaty?
No, they've placed restrictions on flights over Kaliningrad.
Is that a violation of the Open Skies Treaty?
We've raised that as a compliance concern, Mr. Turner, and I believe it's highlighted a little differently in the compliance report we've just submitted to you.
Have you personally advocated that, as in your role, you make a recommendation that Russia be found in violation?
Sir, I hesitate to talk about what I recommend to my secretary in internal deliberations. What I can say to you here, and I'd be happy to discuss in a little more detail in the closed session, is we have expressed concern as a government about Russia's compliance with open skies. We have taken a view within our government that while we have obligations under the treaty, we will perform under those obligations and no more. That is, we will not give them any extra
Well, Mr.
benefit.
McKeon, obviously the concern that we have is if there are those who believe, perhaps yourself even, because our indication is that we're hearing that you do believe that they're violating the Open Skies treaties, and there are others who do believe so as a result of issues like Kaliningrad and overflights, that by our continued compliance, especially in light of General Stewart saying that it puts it as a distinct advantage, that we're in fact, showing all of our cards while we're allowing them to restrict our capabilities. I mean,
Well,
isn't that a significant concern as we're letting somebody else see what we're doing and we're not getting to see what they're doing? Supposedly that was permitted under a treaty?
Well, Congressman, we are overflying the Russian Federation territory. In fact, we have more open skies flights over Russia than Russia does over the United States. There are restrictions, as you just
I think it's an issue just of number of flights, but isn't it an issue of advanced sensors? I mean, hasn't the Supreme Allied Commander indicated he has concerns of the advanced sensors that might be used in overflights over Europe?
Yes, as you recall, Congressman, a couple of years ago, the Russians sought to certify an electro-optical sensor on the plane they used to fly over Europe. It's digital rather than using wet film, and we went through the certification process on that. And learned a lot of lessons from that for possible certification of a plane that would overfly the United States with a similar capability.
Mr. McKeon, obviously, since we have concerns that Russia may be violating the Open Skies Treaty, and from the testimonies we've been receiving, there are serious concerns about what Russia learns in the Open Skies Treaty. And also, the administration now, although it took forever, is finally acknowledging that Russia is violating of the INF Treaty. Shouldn't there be a concern for a pause in extending the START treaty for additional 5 years? And could you please tell us if you believe it's premature for the administration? I understand that they're pushing for a 5-year extension of the new START treaty. Is there a concern where we might be needing to evaluate Russia's actions, especially in their aggressiveness that we're seeing in Ukraine and the overflights? We all just watch the news and watch their planes buzzing us. Is there a point where we should be pausing?
Congressman, as an administration, we've not made a decision about whether to seek the extension of the new START treaty, which does not expire until 2021.
Would your recommendation be that it's premature to do that now?
Again, sir, I don't want to give you what my recommendation would be in internal deliberations. What I would say is one of the factors that we need to take into account is the concerns that you have identified.
And I just want you to know that I think it's really difficult for us as policymakers to have people like yourself that have such important positions as the Principal Deputy Undersecretary of Defense for Policy to say that you don't want to tell us what your recommendations are with respect to policy. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chair, now recognize the gentleman from Louisiana, Mr. Fleming, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Admirals Gortney and Syring. This question is for you. Recently, Bill Gertz of the Washington Free Beacon reported that North Korea has displayed a new road mobile ICBM, and does North Korea in fact have a capability, such capability, and is it testing solid rocket motors for such a missile?
Sir, the intel community assesses the probability of North Korea fielding a successful road mobile ICBM with a miniaturized nuclear device that can range the homeland as low. As the commander accountable for defending the homeland, I choose to assess that he does have that capability, and I think it's the prudent course of action. It's what I think the American people would like me to base my readiness assessment on, to be prepared to engage it. So we are prepared to engage it today, 24 hours a day, 365 days out of the year. As it progresses, the real key piece here is he hasn't tested the end-to-end capability in order to do it. He's displayed the ability through the TD2 space launch to put that in there, but the re-entry vehicle that needs to go with it, the solid rocket mobile fuel, we need to see that test, that end-to-end test. But I'm not waiting for that end-to-end test on my assessment.
Okay. And sort of an extension of that question, can North Korea's KN-08 road mobile ICBM target all of the United States? If indeed, or I guess a better way to put it, based on your response, is are you assuming that it can
target anywhere in the United States, including the continental United States?
Yes, sir. I assess that it can range the homeland that I'm tasked to defend, and we're prepared to engage it for the area that we assess it to be able to reach.
Okay. And can you remind this committee why road mobile missiles are a defense challenge for us?
Because they're mobile and they're very easy to conceal. Previously, you know, when North Korea assembles a rocket, we have intel that we can detect through all forms of intel. When you get into a road mobile target, it's very, very difficult to be able to track, quickly set up and shoot. Most of my career, I drop bombs for a living, and mobile targets are what always cause me pause. And that's exactly why this is a tough challenge for us.
So while it may be difficult to detect, you suggested a little earlier that its payload may not be as significant as something that would be ground-based. Would that be fair to say, or what's your opinion?
No, sir. We assess that they have the ability on the KO-8 I assess that he has the ability to miniaturize a nuclear weapon and range to homeland with that warhead.
I see. Okay.
Again, but we have not seen the end-to-end test of that.
Right. Okay, thank you, and I yield back.
Thank the gentleman. Chair, I recognize the gentleman from Colorado, Mr. Coppin, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. McKeon and Admiral Gortney, in your written statement, you both mentioned, quote, left of launch, unquote, capabilities. Can you elaborate? You're talking about destroying ballistic missiles on the ground before they're launched at us. Is that the point?
I can go into some detail at the unclassed level, and I'll go into much greater detail for you in the classified level. But the current path that we are on with both theater ballistic missile defense and ballistic missile defense for the homeland against the ICBM threat is a very expensive approach. We are shooting down with very expensive rockets, potentially very inexpensive rockets. And we're only engaging it in mid-course for both types of threat. It's mid-course. As we go forward. What we need to be able to do is engage it throughout its particular kill chain. Keep them from getting on the rails, detect them and get them on the rails, hit them while they're still on the rails before launch, provided we have the rules of engagement to do that. Boost phase engagement, which is why the laser designation, laser approach that MDA is going is so important. Multiple times, knock down the raid count, and then continue to engage it with in mid-course, but with more warheads in space, smarter, more reliable, multi-object kill vehicle, maybe 5 warheads in space that are actually communicating with each other to drive the raid count down significantly. And those are the investments that MDA, with your all's full support, have put in place to see which of those technologies throughout the flight of the missile is so important for us.
Okay. Well, what kind of intelligence would we need for the President to order a preemptive attack against a state preparing to launch a missile against the United States?
Go ahead.
I'm going to have to take that at classified level.
Okay. How well are we postured to execute left of launch operations? Could we execute left of launch operations today if we had to?
I'll defer to the classified session and answer there, sir.
What more can Congress do to ensure our military forces have the capabilities and intelligence they would need to execute left of launch operations?
Continue to make the investments that from the MDA realm support those investments that we're asking for, particularly the make what we have the best as what we possibly can make it, and then those investments in R&D. Now there's another avenue that we can talk about in classified for those same sorts of investments are absolutely critical. But I also think it's important to highlight that what Admiral Syring has put in the budget is research and development to see what technologies will play out. Once we make a decision of which of those are going to give us the best value, then we'll be having to come to your committee again for investments to actually field those capabilities.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Thank the gentleman. Admiral Syring, how much longer would it take and how much more would it cost for you to develop, test, and field a long-range discrimination radar in the 5000 series and a redesigned kill vehicle?
In the, if I can just clarify, Mr. Chairman, in DoD 5000?
Yes.
Sir, I haven't done that analysis, but I'd be happy to. We were able to, and I'll just reiterate this, we were able to, with Mr. Kendall's help, Admiral Winnefeld's help at the time, turn a requirement through the JROC process in about 6 weeks. 6 weeks. And that's given me the top cover for this radar. And our decision to use existing technology, I thought, was huge in terms of not having to go through the risk reduction phase between milestone A and B, where we chose, I think I got a question over here, the similar GaN S-band technology that's in the AMDR radar. So there were some decisions that we made both in the requirement and in the technology that we chose that enabled us to go to contract award in less than 2 years.
Okay. Admiral, recently the press reported that Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov said he had obtained an agreement with Secretary Kerry to launch a dialogue about the U.S. missile defense shield in Eastern Europe. Moscow argues the system is a threat to its security. As the Director of Missile Defense Agency, what do you know about this dialogue, and what is the
sense?
Mr. McEwen, do you understand that in any way that the United States is willing to depart from its current position on the EPAA, what we will have laid out to happen with that?
No.
Okay. Admiral Syring, Secretary Kerry has been spending quite a bit of time focused on missile defense lately. He's also invited the People's Republic of China to receive technical briefings on the capability of THAAD, including if deployed in South Korea. What do you know about the briefings the Secretary has offered, if anything?
Nothing, sir. We haven't been asked.
All right. Admiral, you're aware of MDA or MDA contractors being targeted or, quote, hacked by groups or entities linked to China or the Chinese military?
Yes, sir.
Or can you tell us anything about that in open session?
Let me just give you the answer unclassified, and then we can go deeper classified, if that's okay, Mr. Chairman. I testified yesterday that I viewed the cyber threat that I specifically face with MDA and the systems that we're fielding on par with any intercontinental ballistic missile threat that either Iran or North Korea possess. We have taken inordinate steps to protect both our classified and unclassified networks from attack, constant 24/7 monitoring with teams in place, plus good material protections of those systems. My biggest concern remains in our cleared defense contractor base and their protections. I think my view is that they continue to try to attack my government networks every day, classified and unclassified, but where they're going next, and we've got examples of this, is to my cleared defense contractors with the unclassified controlled technical information. And what we've got to do is get them up to where we are in terms of our protection levels. And I view it as a very near-term, very real requirement across the BMDS.
Okay. Thank you. Ranking members recognized for any additional questions he may have.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the expeditious nature of this public portion of the hearing. I'm going to hold my further questions to the classified session.
Mr. Chairman, I could address the question you gave to Admiral Syring about Secretary Kerry and China and THAAD.
Please.
Similar to the Russians, we have offered to explain to them what THAAD is and is not, and why it's not a threat to their deterrent were we to deploy it in the Republic of Korea. They have not taken us up on this offer. We have a firm view, as expressed previously. This is about protecting our deployed forces and our Korean partners, and has nothing to do with China or China's deterrent, and they shouldn't worry about it.
Well, we're going to talk more about that in the classified session, but I appreciate that comment. Yeah, we are supposed to be called for votes at any minute. So I think what I'll do is, rather than get us into the classified setting and then have to be pulled away, we will just adjourn until 10 minutes after the next vote series concludes. If they call us in the next 5 or 6 minutes, you're looking at about 45 minutes after that. So it'll be around 3:45 to 3:50 when we reconvene for the classified portion of this hearing. And with that, this hearing is suspended. No, it's not adjourned. Recess, there you go. I knew you was good for something.